Okay, so let's say you have just passed your NCLEX exams and you're ready to start work as a nurse in the US. And there are some things that will help you. The first thing you need to keep in mind is that there are some states that are good for nurses and some states are not too good for nurses. And to think of which states are good for nurses, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and according to the Nurses Journal and according to the American Nurses Association, they consider things like how many top quality hospitals are available in that state, okay? And top hospitals are available in that state. Secondly, is staffing ratios, because staffing is one of the most important things, okay? Nurse to patient ratios in the state, and then availability of jobs. And guys, believe it or not, some states have more jobs than others. There are some states where nurses are qualified or pass the NCLEX and have to wait for 6 months to up to a year here in the US before they get posted to their first nursing jobs, because almost all the hospitals are saying that the hospitals or the new nurses do not have experience. And I thought this was something that was happening in just other countries, but apparently some people in the US also experience that. And when I came across that, I was shocked to the bone, just like you might be surprised if you are watching this for the first time. So these are parameters that we're using in deciding which hospitals or which states are best for nurses and those ones which are not. Now, and so going by these factors, I'm going to present to you the best states for nurses, okay? And then which ones are the worst states for nurses. Yeah. So let me just do like a table here. I think this ink is going bad. Okay, let me change it. Okay. And now, according to the data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Nurses Journal, the best states for nurses are California, which I believe most people are not surprised by because they pay good rates and they have very good staffing ratios, which is actually mandated by law. So hospitals are not allowed to exceed that. So California ticks like 2 boxes. It has good staffing ratios, jobs are available there, and it has some of the top hospitals, UCLA and all of that, Kaiser. They're all in California, and so it's one of the best states for nurses. There is Arizona, which is like a new entrant to the list, but it's like a retirement state where there are a lot of baby boomers retiring, and so the government is investing a lot into the healthcare for people in Arizona, and so it's a good state for nurses. There is Texas, which also is famous for having very affordable homes. Nurses are able to buy homes within their first year of working in Texas, because home prices in Texas apparently start from about $350,000, which is like the median, and nurses earn good money there that they are able to afford their early homes in Texas, and so it's like one of the best states for nurses to work. The next state on the list is Washington, which also is one of the states with good nurse to patient ratios, top hospitals like the University of Washington Hospital, among a lot of others. And then the last state among the best states for nurses is Oregon, okay? And so I mean, Oregon is close to Washington. It's also a good state, great jobs, good staffing ratios, and so on and so forth. And so if you just qualified and you're looking to start work and you're looking for the states that are best for you, you don't have ties to family which are going to keep you in a particular state, and you are free to move to any state that you want, I think that you'll probably be better off starting a career in one of those states. But I'm not saying that starting here is going to be a panacea to your success. I'm just saying that it is a great state to work. Now, the states which are considered the worst, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and information from the Nurses Journal, are states like Mississippi. I don't know if that's how it's spelled. Oklahoma, okay? I mean, that's another funny one. And then Hawaii. I mean, Hawaii is notorious for being a terrible state for nurses, and the reason is because Hawaii is a beautiful place. They pay nurses a lot, but it is unbelievably expensive because it's a very attractive tourist destination, and so a lot of tourists come spend so much money there, and so things like home prices are very expensive. The hospitality industry there has driven prices way up there, and so if you're a nurse working in Hawaii, by the time you finish paying your mortgage and your income taxes, you would have spent about 70% of your take-home pay, and so you'll be left with just about 25 to 30%, which is just about $800 to $900 a month after you've paid your taxes and mortgage, which is why it's a terrible state for nurses. Now, the other one is Alabama, for whatever reason, and then Arkansas. Now, guys, keep in mind that deciding which state is good for nurses and which state is bad goes beyond just the money, because, for example, somebody lives in South Dakota and may be earning $37 an hour, but the person pays $850 a month for rent. So that person is still going to be left with a larger chunk of their money if you compare them to somebody based in Hawaii and is earning $50 a month. Even though they are earning a lot more, they are having to spend a lot more as well. And so what you are left with after you spend is really, really small, which is why these states made it to the worst states for nurses. And it's something that you need to keep in mind. And I hope this information is very important to you. Having said that, let's get to the next tip you need to keep in mind if you're planning to start work in the US. And now the second thing I'll talk about here is that burnout is real. I think this is how you spell it, right? So burnout is real, and you need to take time to solve that problem. Now, it has become so rampant that the commonest word among nurses in the US these days, and even in the UK, is burnout. You hear them saying, I'm burned out, I'm experiencing a burnout, I can't take this any longer, I can't cope. And that's why nurses are quitting in their droves. And apparently, it's not just nurses experiencing the burnout. Now, the American Medical Association has also coined the term physician burnout. And I saw an article that they were talking about how to overcome physician burnout. And it appears that the problem is bigger than I actually thought. It's so big that I've seen people giving out or selling courses that teach nurses how to avoid getting burnout. And even though that might be a stretch, the problem of burnout is real, and several things account for these problems. Okay, now the first one I have seen is that there's increasing workload, okay, because people are living longer in these countries. I mean, for some reason, people are just not dying. Life expectancy has gone through the roof, and so the more people are living and the more people are giving birth, population is increasing, and the more people grow old, the more comorbidity they have along the line. So they are having more diseases and illnesses, and for that matter, there's always demand for healthcare professionals. Like I said about Arizona, there are a lot of people who are retiring in Arizona, and so the population of geriatrics who are looking for care is increasing, which is why people who are providing prescriptions like nurse practitioners and doctors, the demand for them in the year 2024 and 2025 is projected to go to 9%, because people need care. They need physicians, they need prescribers and all of that. And one of the signs that you are getting a burnout is that you are constantly overworked. And guys, this is like something that's very important. Now, the reason for this is because when you work in these areas, you realize that there's so much demand for nurses. And so there's always a job that is requiring your attention. And some people do like 5 days in a row, 7 days in a row, 12 days in a row. I mean, I know someone who has 2 jobs, and they're all full-time jobs. So he works 0.9 in this facility, which is like 3 days in a row, and goes to work 3 days in another facility. And so the person works 6 days continuously, has 1 day off, and starts the cycle again. I used to do that while I was back in Ghana, and I was working like 8 days, 10 days in a row. But I realized that was one of the worst decisions I made, because it is so overwhelming, it is so stressful. It's definitely not worth your mental health. You might get the money after some time. You realize that you are trading your health for cash, which I'm told is not a wise thing to do. And let me just say that this is not life advice I'm giving. I'm just giving you some propositions for your contemplation. And so the buck stops with you, and the ultimate decision is going to be made by you. Talking about decisions though, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make the decision to subscribe and support the channel, and leave a comment in the comment section, guys. Okay, pardon me. Now, the next sign that you are experiencing the burnout is that you don't feel appreciated, and you don't look forward to going to work. Okay, so you don't feel appreciated, you have no interest in going back to work. And guys, like, one of the things about nursing is that nursing is a profession that is really fulfilling morally. So when you do a good job as being a nurse, you realize that people are happy and they express their appreciation for the help you've given them. The moment it gets to a point where you no longer feel appreciated in your job as a nurse, and you just feel like, I'm going to perform a chore and I'm going back to work again, and you are thinking about all the problems I don't want to see on my manager's face, I don't want to see the other people who try to be bullies, or all the microaggressions that go on at work and all of that, and you dread it. And I'm not talking about a toxic work environment, I'm talking about a normal work environment where none of these things I mentioned exist, but you just don't look forward to going to be a nurse and care for people. Then I think that you might have to take a step and rethink the whole process, because you probably need some time out. You need to take a break and relax. And I see it happen all the time. Like, I know some nurses who have shared, or they found a way to split their annual leaves into 5 or 6 equal parts, so that every month or every other month they have 1 week annual leave, and they go on that leave and they come back just so they can clear their head. Because if you want to keep working like 7 months in a row before you go on an annual leave or on a break, it's stressful. Like, you can't keep punching yourself like that. Your mental health is going to take a hit, and that's one of the things you need to think about. And sometimes, and the last thing I'll talk about is that if you're experiencing a burnout, you need to like seek help, okay? Like, and I am guilty at this as well, okay? Because where I come from in the UK or in Ghana, you want to be seen as a strong person who is always working and able to do everything by yourself. Even when people want to help you, you refuse the help, you push back, you say, no, I'll do it myself. And I used to do this. Then later I realized how stupid I was being, because nobody's going to give you credit for doing everything by yourself if you make mistakes at work. So if there is help available, be sure to ask for help. There's always going to be a resource nurse who's going to help you when you're drowning, when your ship is sinking, okay? Like, they'll come and ask you, do you want me to do an IV for you, or do you want me to do a medication for you, or do you want me to help you turn the patient and stuff like that. Take those opportunities and say yes to them, and they're going to help you so that you get a level head when working. You are not too stressed out. It's very important. Like, now if I stop making this video here, I guess I still would have achieved a lot, because burnout is such a big deal for people in the US, especially nurses. And take time to protect your mental health, because guys, I don't know how else to put it, but nurses are quitting their jobs, and one of the leading causes is that people's mental health is being attacked and they're experiencing a burnout at an increasing rate, okay? Now, having said that, let's go to the next point. Now, the third point to keep in mind is that here in the US, there are rich nurses, okay? And then there are poor nurses. And you need to choose which side you want to be on. And, you know, now, some people do not know this, but some people think that every nurse in the US is rich. But I've seen a lot of videos about nurses who are complaining that they are broke and all of that. And even in the UK, the Royal College of Nursing says that some nurses are having to go to the food bank and get money, or get tickets and coupons to be able to get food and stuff like that. And I think that the story is the same in the US, and it's pretty much everywhere. There are some nurses who are rich, and there are some nurses who are poor. And if you're starting out in your career, you need to make a decision as to which side of the divide you want to be on, literally. And one thing I've noticed about the rich nurses in Ghana is that they go on to get their certifications, and they don't get stuck at their entry-level jobs. I mean, there is research that shows that the average time for a nurse in the US in a job is 2 years. Just 2 years, and then they move on. Whether that is true or not, I realize that the rich nurses do one of three things. One, they go on to get certifications and they become either a CRNA, a nurse practitioner, or they specialize in any of the fields that might interest them. They may become a palliative nurse, okay, or they may become a nurse manager and all of that. Whatever one you choose to do, you need to be doing something. You don't need to get stuck at that same level. If you feel that nursing is difficult and it is not rewarding, I can tell you that no matter how bad it is, your manager probably earns more money than you, or a CRNA will definitely be earning more money than an RN. A nurse practitioner who owns their practice is going to be earning way more money than an RN who is still working at the bedside. And this is one thing I've seen the rich nurses do. And there's a book that I read about rich nurses and poor nurses in the US, and I absolutely recommend it. You should try and check it out. Now, the other thing that rich nurses do in the US that I've noticed is that they create NCLEX study materials, they write nursing school study guides, okay, so they write books on nursing for nursing students, or they create a program that is a study program for nurses and nursing students. Like what I was talking to you about the burnout course. It is one of the things that rich nurses do. Like, they create something. They are either creating an ebook, or they are creating an NCLEX study guide, or a question bank that is teaching people how to become good nurses, how to become nurses and qualify as nurses, or how to take the NCLEX exams and pass it. It's as simple as that. It's not too hard to do. Almost anyone with the intelligence of a mushroom can put together a question bank, considering all the AI resources available these days, okay? And so these are the things that the rich nurses do that I have seen. I know that there may be others, but mostly they get certifications, they create study guides, and some of them also go on into the digital media creation space, or whatever you want to call it, like content creation space. That is what some rich nurses also in the US do. You might have come across somebody like Nurse John, who is charging people a whopping $18 a month to be in a group where he just creates funny skits about nursing and all of that, and that guy is very rich, I'm told. Okay, The poor nurses do not do any of these things I spoke about. They just don't do any of these things. They get stuck at the same level of work for so many years. And it's not a bad thing that you are taking time to build your career in one firm. But the thing is that, are you improving yourself? Because I know people who have been on the same floor for like 27 years and they are also doing very well. They've gained certifications and they become experts in that field. That's different. But there's some people who are just not interested in upgrading themselves. They are just there and they are doing the bare minimum. Okay, they are not improving themselves by any stretch. Now, if you do that, you don't become useful to your hospital, because the hospital is also looking for you to become an improved person. You don't have to be at the same level they hired you, because in that case, you're not adding value to the facility and you're not improving the care you're giving to patients. So you definitely have to go beyond the bare minimum. And they don't do any of these things. And so their pay stays the same. It grows at a slow rate. And by the time they realize inflation has crept in and they're experiencing a lot of money problems. The other thing that poor nurses do is that they spend above their means. So their expenses or what they spend on is greater than their income. And if you are starting out as a nurse, you have to take time to be sure that you are spending lesser than you earn. It's the simplest way I can explain this whole thing. Okay, and then we'll go to the next thing, which I believe is going to be the last point, because the video is getting so long, and then we are going to end the video, and that's it. Okay, now the last point I'll talk about is that you need to take your time to build your credit. And whether you build your credit, you call it a credit or credit score, is the same thing. Okay, but here in the US, when you want to buy a car, you want to buy a house, you want to buy a couch, anything, you are most likely to use a credit card, or you need a credit score to be able to analyze your ability to pay for whatever you're buying. I mean, unlike Ghana or in Africa, where most of the things you buy, if you want a house in Ghana, you need to buy land cash and buy the materials and build your house, and then you own it outright. Or you want to buy a car, you need to raise money and buy it outright. Here in the US, you can own almost everything if you have a good credit score, but you don't have money. You don't have the physical cash, because the bank is going to give you the loan. If it's a house, they'll give you a loan. It's called a mortgage. If it's a car, they're going to give you a credit facility to buy a car, and you can afford it if you have a good credit score. Now, the important thing is to take time and build your credit score. I have a lot of nurse friends and a lot of people who are not even nurses, but they're Americans and British people, and it's some of the financial decisions that they make that helps them go up, and some people, it's the financial decisions they make that brings them down. And for most new nurses, that is one thing you need to take time to build, which is your credit score. And how you build your credit score is by getting a credit card. Okay, now this is not financial advice, it's just propositions for you to decide what to do, but it's what I've done and what people have advised me, like financial advisors have advised. I did, and it seems to be working. Okay, so like you need to get a credit card and build a credit score, because you need to buy stuff using your credit card, and once you buy stuff from your credit card, between 10 to 14 days, be sure to pay it off. Okay, and don't spend more than 30%. Actually, don't spend more than, so it should be less than or equal to 30% of your total amount. So if your credit card limit is say $1,000, okay, be sure to spend about $300 within the period, within the month or within the 2 weekly period, and then pay it off. If you are spending more than this amount, you are seen as a risky borrower, because how much you spend on your credit card is going to be a guide to how much you can spend when they increase your credit limits and they give you a loan, and it's also going to determine whether you are able to pay your bills on time. Now, you need what is called a credit score to be able to get a good mortgage. And in the US, it looks like the average credit score for people who want to buy a home is between 600 to 700. Now, for banks that are sponsored by the government or by the states with a federal mortgage program, you might need a lower credit score. But if your credit score is good up to this level, or even higher, up to about 760, what is going to happen is that you are going to be able to get a loan, a mortgage at a lower interest rate and for a longer term with better conditions and a higher amount. So whatever you do as a nurse, please take time and build your credit score, because nursing is one of those jobs that most nurses calculate their next expense by the next shift. Okay, so I need a new watch. It's going to cost me, let's say, $800. Okay, that's 2 shifts. I'm going to pick 2 shifts in, say, County Hospital, and I do those shifts, and then I'm gone. Or I need a new car, and I'm not thinking of buying it outright. I'm going to pay it every month, and the monthly payments for the new Tesla is probably going to be $700. So I can do 2 shifts, extra shifts a month somewhere, and I'll be able to pay off the Tesla in 5 years. Well, that's true, but the question is that what you really want to do? Like, are you going to stretch yourself and give it to Elon Musk, who already has billions and probably doesn't need your money? Okay, so that's just by the way, but it's something that you need to think about. Take time and build your credit score. Like, the things you're buying, the financial decisions you are making is going to determine how early you retire and how much money you have if you want to take a course or go back to school. The next 2 things I'll talk about is that you need to take time and build your competence, okay? Build your competence. Now, this is pretty much something that's very important that we all have to understand. When I say build your competence, like things like your core nursing skills, your medication administration and stuff like that, it's very important. For example, things like medication administration, you have patients who are going to be asking you for medications from time to time. And the reason is because your most important asset as a nurse is your license, and it is your nursing license is tied directly to your ability to practice. One of the things that you do most commonly is administration of medications. And when you make a medication mistake, remember that there's always someone who is going through the charts and looking at whatever you're doing. Don't think you're just going to do it and go away and that's it. No, when you go home, people will still go through your charts and see whether you've done the right thing. So build your competence in your core nursing skills. Like if you're giving medications, you will see patients who keep asking, give me pain meds. Give me pain meds, can I have pain medication? And for example, you need to be able to give it at the right time. Like you need to be able to check the time and all of that. Basic as it may seem, there are some times where you make mistakes or you see people who have given medications and they are not sure whether they've done the right thing because they are having concerns about the timing and all of that. And things like Tylenol, for example, you have patients will tell you, give me Tylenol, can I have Tylenol? But the standard says that, and sometimes it's also from the doctor's orders, they will say not greater than, or okay, let me just say less than or equal to 4 grams of Tylenol in 24 hours. That means that you shouldn't give more than 4 milligrams of paracetamol or Tylenol in 24 hours. But what they don't tell you is that you are not supposed to give more than 1 gram, okay, in 4 hours. Okay, so sometimes you see, I've had this discussion with pharmacists a lot of times. They'll tell you, oh, it's okay to give the medication, but when you ask them, the patient just had it 3 hours ago, they say, oh, okay, wait until after 4 hours, because sometimes the patient might ask and then the patient will end up receiving a cumulative dose that is more than 1 gram in 4 hours. And so you need to keep that in mind. Sometimes the medications for Tylenol is going to be like 650 milligrams, but you need to be sure that the next dose they are getting is not going to cumulatively add to more than 1 gram in 1 hour. Of course, you can give up to 4 grams in 24 hours, but to be sure not to exceed 1 gram in 4 hours, because if you do that, it's a medication error. And it's so many other things that you need to level up as your competence as a nurse, because I realize that competence is such a leveler. You can talk about racism, you can talk about bullying at work and all of that, but a competent nurse is going to be able to prevail in a lot of circumstances. And sometimes if you move to a new facility, it's going to take time for you to become leveled up and competent in all your tasks and all of that. But the quicker you get to that point, the easier it is for you, because some people who may not even be as competent as you because they've been on the floor for some time know what's happening and they want to rub it in your face and all of that. But you need to try and as much as you can to build your competence, which brings me to the next point, which is take time and get a mentor. And guys, I know that this is not something that most nurses do, but it is so important. Like very, very important. I know nurses understand what plus means. Okay, like when you're on the floor where everybody is putting up their best and there are 4 nurses who are all competent, and the opportunity to go up and do something else or to go for the program, the training, the promotion is up, competence alone will not cut it. You need to get someone who is in the room or in the boardroom, as they say, mentioning your name and making a case for you and speaking on your behalf. And it's particularly essential and important that you need to get someone who is going to guide you through the path and teach you what you ought to do and what you ought not to do. I think it was in the movie War Room, that popular movie, that the older lady told the younger lady that there are some landmines that I think you're going to step on, and so I'm going to guide you through them, because victories don't just happen. And it can be said of nursing that nursing in the US, if you want to start work as a nurse, and you want to do well, you need to get someone who's advising you, do this course, don't do that course, talk about this with patients, don't talk about that with patients, ask your manager for this, don't ask your manager for that. Look out for these opportunities when looking for a hospital. Don't look for this when going to a hospital. Go to this state, don't go to that state. Specialize in this, don't specialize in that. Go and work in ICU instead of a rehab, or start on the med-surg floor if you are starting out at work, and stuff like that. You need someone who's going to guide you, because nursing has become very competitive and very, very complex. And someone who is holding your hand is going to make your journey a whole lot quicker and a whole lot smoother. And let me conclude by this analogy. Okay, I love using analogies. Let me conclude by this analogy. So you have point A to point B. You can get from point A to point B in several ways. You can come to this way and you get to point B, you have arrived. You can get from here and get to this part in point B from point A, and you have arrived. But if you notice, you can also get from here and get straight to this place and you would have arrived. What is worth saying is that this journey is shorter and this one is longer. And now it does appear that the shortest distance between the 2 points is a straight line. And a straight line is a guide. So when someone is guiding you, you are going to get from point A to point B at a much quicker time, which is why some people like to take courses online and all of that. And some say courses are not important. But the good thing about a course is that someone has distilled all of their experience and has been put in a, let's say, a 1 hour or 2 hour video for you, and has compressed like 15 years of experience or 10 years of experience in a short video for you, which is going to cost you about, say, $1,000 or $500. And it's going to shorten your learning curve. And you're going to learn so much within a brief period of time. So getting a mentor is a no-brainer. It's very essential, and it's one thing I wish I had done earlier in my career, and I believe it's going to be important to you if you do it. I know this video has been long, but I hope it's useful. At this point, I'm going to end this video. Thank you for watching. I hope I've given you some value, and these are things that you need to do once before you start work as a nurse in the US. Leave a comment down in the description and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Now, a lot of you want to reach out to me and ask questions, but if you have any question on your mind, this is the best email address to reach me on: youtube@manasetete.com, and I keep saying it .com. Okay, now I created this email purposely to communicate with you guys, so this is the quickest way to get a response from me: youtube@manasetete.com, and I'll be sure to answer your questions. I hope I've delivered some value to you in this video. Please let me know in the comment section what you got from this and what you think of it, and I'll be sure to follow up. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.